Okay, we are starting some lessons on Indian history. See, the purpose of history is to create a better society, and in India's case, a better nation. So we are going to examine whether Indian history has served its purpose. We are going to look at the project of history in India's nation building. I believe Indian history has massively failed. Indian historians have done unforgivable sins, and India is paying price now. But in this video, we are not going to specifics of history. But anyway, I am confining to modern Indian history. I am not going to cover ancient or medieval part. This is about modern Indian history. Before going into the specifics, let us evolve certain principles through one hypothetical case. That hypothetical case is, suppose there is a country in which demographic composition is 70% Sunni and 30% Shia. 70% Sunni and 30% Shia. 70% of Sunni or more, the Sunni are on the northern side, and Shia are on the southern side. And the country is following so-called democracy. Shias felt that they were being discriminated. Democracy was not working equally to them. So they want a separate country, a separate nation. Is it right? That is the issue. So, Shia, Sunni, and demography matching with territory. I am not saying India is a case like this. We are just looking at certain principles. Now, when Shias say that we want a separate nation, can Sunnis say that we are all Muslims, we have common history, we have common struggles, and 99+% of culture is common, and so you should not leave? So that is commonality of history, culture cannot be a reason for Sunnis to say Shias should not. My answer is that it can't be. The issue now is, do Shias feel that they are equal to Sunnis? Not whether there is a common culture, common God, common holy book, common history. They are not important. Because the argument is not about the past, the argument is about the present and the future. the rights of the Shias. So, commonality of culture cannot be the reason to avoid creation of two nations. That is one about commonality. The second thing is, suppose Sunnis say, our state believes in neutrality towards sects, Shias and Sunnis. Our state believes in Allah as the God who didn't discriminate between Shias and Sunnis. In the first place, they were not there during his lifetime. And we will follow Allah. And Allah won't discriminate between Shias and Sunnis. We will follow. We'll try our best. And you should trust. A promise. I think, is that right? I don't think so. A promise is only a promise. Whether that is being implemented or not is what is to be judged. If that promise is really being implemented, then Shias won't ask and they need not go. But they think it is not going to be implemented. It is not the talk of Muslims are equal before Allah. It is the actual delivery of whether Shias and Sunnis are being treated equally. It is not about the talk of Muslim equality. It is about whether there is actual delivery in terms of discrimination against Shias. So, it is not the promise, but the actual implementation. And then we have another strange argument. This argument comes from so-called Marxists. These you can say Marxist Muslims. The Marxist Muslims of that country say, if there is any exploitation, if there is any discrimination, the discrimination is along class lines, not along sectarian lines. Okay, probably instead of calling them Marxist Muslims, you call them Marxist nationalists. They would say that Shia Sunni doesn't matter. Conflict is always along class lines. So we should see the conflict between landlords and the landless, the industrialist and the proletariat, the rich and the poor, and not between Shias and Sunnis. Because the real conflict is economic, and that economic conflict is along class lines. So they argue, let us all live together. This thinking of going because one is a Shia, they would say, is communalism. And communalism is wrong. What is this argument? Just because there can be class conflict, won't it remove all other kinds of conflicts? Shia, Sunni, North, South or whatever. So how can they say that if you are thinking that you are a Sunni and because you are a Sunni, you are dominating the other, or you are a Shia and that is why you feel being dominated? That is a wrong way to think. And if you are thinking like that, you are communal. I don't think that makes sense either. Because what matters is, are Shias being discriminated? Do they feel being discriminated? Shias as a community, not in terms of classes within Shias. So the Marxist nationalism is wrong. The promise of equality is wrong. And common history is wrong. Two-nation theory has to be judged only in terms of whether a community will feel equal or the system is working according to the majority. That is the only criteria. There is no other criteria. If there is no majoritarianism, there is no need. But if there is majoritarianism, and when an identity is concentrated in a particular territory and that separate nation is possible, then there can be separate nation. So, landed territories in border which face discrimination are eligible to be separate nations. A territory basis, landed identities with a territorial basis and in border and feeling discrimination have every right to be separate nations. Of course, the territory is not in the border, then a separate state only is possible, separate nation is difficult. An identity is spread across the whole country, then territorial separation can't be a solution at all. So, identities with territorial basis, feeling majoritarianism, and at the border deserve to be nations. It doesn't matter whether the culture is common or there is class is the source of exploitation, or what the constitution says about how the political system is expected to function. So, we're just making certain proposals. Indian case is probably much more complex, but we need to have a theoretical clarity under simplest of cases to examine a complex system. So, a nation is simply an arrangement for people to lead a just and non-discriminatory life. There is nothing more than that. Thank you.